Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Mental Corner podcast, the show where I bring on guests from all different backgrounds to talk all the things mental health. I'm your host, Harry Potvin, and today I have the absolute pleasure of being joined by David Richman. David is a former sedentary, overweight smoker turned endurance athlete. In the last 10 years, David has completed over 50 triathlons, several 24-hour runs, 15 ironmans, and more. He is also the author of the new book, Cycle of Lives, which covers 15 people from America's stories about their experiences through the emotional chaos of cancer. I had such a fun time talking to David, and I really want to thank him again for coming on and having this discussion with me. Now, if you're listening, guys, you know the drill. Please like, comment, share, subscribe, give 5 stars if you're on that podcast platform. Share with someone who might want to hear this episode. It's a really great one, and I can't wait for you to listen. I'll talk to y'all very soon. Have a great rest of your day. Peace. We're good to go. David, what's going on, man? Thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, dude. I'm very happy to talk to you. Thank you for taking time for me.
Of course. So my first question for you is, and I mean, I was reading up about you, I was looking up stuff, and it's just the first thing that came to mind every time. You know, you've done over 50 triathlons, 24-hour runs, solo 5,000-mile bike ride, 4 consecutive marathons, the list goes on. My main question for you, why? What motivated, as a guy who hates running and hates cardio, my main question is, why would you put your body through this? What inspired you to start that?
Oh man, well, that's two good questions, right? One question is what inspired me to start it. The other question is why do I do it? Very different questions, but they're both great questions. So, what inspired me to do it was, I mean, in a short note, Harry, it was this. It was that I was in my late 30s. I was overweight. I was a smoker. I was stressed out to no ends at work. I was, I mean, to be brutally honest, I had to escape a relationship with an abusive alcoholic. Um, my ex-wife and I had 4-year-old twins, and it was really bad for me and my kids. So we had to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just at this like low point in my life, not the lowest point in my life, but just a low point where I kind of came to the realization. I probably should have figured it out a lot earlier, Harry, but I came to the realization that I was living my life for everybody else and not for me.
Right.
And when I kind of felt like I was in a safe place to ask myself the question, who do you want to be? It was like the first time I ever asked it. Like I didn't say, who do you want to be to make your boss happy? Or what do you need to do to make your mom happy? Or what do you need to do to make your girlfriend or your wife or whatever, your friend happy? It was like, what do you need to make yourself happy?
Mm.
And I said, well, I got to start being healthy. You know what? I like to be physically fit because I've never been that in my adult life, and maybe stop smoking because I just found out that my sister was diagnosed with terminal brain cancer. And I'm like, cancer is real. Like maybe I should stop. Like it's just all hit me at one time. And, maybe I was living in denial before that or whatever, but kind of you just know what you know when you know it. And I just knew at that point I wanted to see what I was capable of and what I wanted to do. So that was the why do it. And part of the reason, Harry, was really simple. You can't run while you're smoking.
Right.
So how are you going to quit? How are you going to how are you going to keep smoking if you're running, biking, and swimming? Right? You can't smoke in the pool, right?
No.
Not while you're swimming. So I figured that was a really good avoidance technique. Just stay busy and stay active, and you will not smoke because you can't smoke and run, right? You look pretty stupid. So that was the why. And then, what made me start doing it. The why do I keep doing it is because, like anything in life, once you get a passion, you want to explore that passion to see what more it can offer you. And so for me, every time I do an endurance event that's over the top, that is maybe something I didn't think I could do or that I shouldn't do, or that's unbelievably difficult, I just like to see what I'm made of. So that the why is just to figure out what I could gain from it.
Right. Yeah. See how far your body can push itself.
And the mind,
Right. Yeah.
right? You're big into the how, how far you can push your mind and what the mind is capable of. And it definitely is. It's like Wayne Gretzky says, right? And 90% of hockey is physical, the other half is mental, right?
Right.
Right. 90% of endurance athletics is physical, the other half is mental. It's pretty mental.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, when you got this realization that you were living life for other people and not yourself, what what spiked or what caused that realization? Was there anything in particular?
Yeah, it kind of was, and I don't know if I noticed it at the time, but I reflected on it a lot, back when, and it was like this constant cycle of like really working hard to dig myself out of holes or trying to make the best of a bad situation that I was in. And that was a pattern I lived my life in, right? A lot of guys have that pattern, especially if
Hmm.
you don't have relationships with your mom. You want to fix everything, you want to make everything better, you want to please people, you want to validate that you're a good person, all this shit. So, excuse my language. So,
You're good.
um, so I was in this. I was on my boat, like across about 20 miles across the island, across the coast of California, and I'm sitting there on my boat, and my buddy is next to me, and we've been friends for a while, and I was complaining again about how mean my ex-wife was, how terrible work is, how this person that or this person that. And he looked at me, he goes, dude, he goes, stop complaining. Like, man, you are the problem,
Mm.
not them. And I go, excuse me? He goes, yeah, you're the problem. He goes, you keep wanting to fix your wife. She's not the problem, dude. She's mean as a junkyard dog, but she cannot help it,
Mm.
right? You can't change her. She doesn't want to change, but you can change yourself. And I went, oh, I'm the problem. I see that. So it didn't really hit me like a lightning bolt, but upon reflection, that was really an insightful thought that I was always I was always frustrated with not making the world that I wasn't in control of what I wanted it to be. The relationships, the people, the situations that I'm not in control of, I wanted them to be better or be a different way, or I wanted to solve the problem or fix the problem. And I couldn't. Well, then I said, at some point when I realized, man, I got to start living my own life, then I just said, well, don't you think you should worry about making yourself happy? Because you can control that,
Mm.
right? I can't control the way I think other people think of me, but I can't control the way I think of myself or who I want to be. And if they think good of me, then that's their idea. Or if they think bad, that's their idea. But what do I feel about me? That's what I should put first. And I think that I wanted to do that as a good example for my kids too. I didn't want them to run around trying to make me happy or trying to please their teacher. I wanted them to be the best they could be for them, and it was just a twisting of a mindset.
Right. Yeah. No, I love everything you just said because I feel like there's, a repetition of this right now with people is that just trying to get everyone else to think the same as them. And it's a problem because there's so many people trying to shift everyone else's view as their own, or like they see themselves in, let's say celebrities or just normal people on social media or whatever it is. If you don't have the same opinion, or if you say something that that person wouldn't say, they get angry because they're like, why is the rest of the world not conforming to what I'm thinking? It's like, well,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, so brilliant, Harry. And it's a total mindset. I wrote a book called Winning in the Middle of the Pack. And some people get the concept, if they read the book, then they really get it. But other people are like, dude, what do you mean winning in the middle of the pack? What do you mean it's okay to be in the middle of the pack where nobody's looking, nobody cares? I go, that's the most beautiful place in the world.
Mm.
Because if you're doing stuff for other people, how is that fulfilling for you? Right?
Right.
Like in the middle of the pack means like I'm not the 30-year-old living on my mom's couch doing drugs, playing video games. following people trying to be a social media influencer because I have 1,000 followers, right? I'm not that guy. And I'm certainly not Elon Musk or Oprah Winfrey, right? I'm not that, because both those people, they don't care about what anybody else thinks.
Mm.
They're going to be them. They don't care. All of us in the middle, dude, we care about what our teachers think or what our friends think or what the boss thinks. We try to influence it. I think all of us in the middle of the pack, we ought to just be worried about ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like I love the idea of when I get ready for a race, okay? Nobody's watching. Nobody cares. Nobody's looking up my finish time. Nobody wonders, oh, where did he finish in his age group or how well did he do? Nobody cares, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're living their own lives. I'm not doing it to impress anybody. All I'm trying to do is figure it out for me. What can I learn? What can I accomplish? How do I feel about myself? Did I give it my best effort? Because who cares what anybody else thinks? And I love that idea. And I don't mean it in a way like I'm gonna hurt people. Who cares what they think? I mean, I'm gonna focus on me. Who cares what people think?
Right.
And not me in a selfish way, me in a fulfilling way. Do you know what I'm saying?
Right. No, 100%. On the same theme. It's like, and I've experienced this where, you're afraid to do something that you really want to do, or you're afraid to, be a part of something you really want to be a part of because you're scared of what other people are going to think about you when you join that thing or you do that thing. It's like, don't give a crap about that, man. Like, if I would rather do the thing and get judged for it, like assuming it's all in good reason
Right.
and everything. I would rather do the thing and then get people to go like, "Oh, why are you doing that?" Then later on down the road look back and go, "Shit, I wish I did that."
I know. Yeah. And the thing is that I think we use, especially if you're a guy like me who was in a pattern of always thinking I had to be a certain thing because that's what I thought other people expected of me.
Mm.
Okay. And honestly, Harry, I'm not exaggerating. I had lunch with a friend. He's 73 years old. And he called me out, he called me over and he goes, dude, I literally just finished your book, Winning in the Middle of the Pack. And we went to lunch and he wanted to talk to me about it. And he was this overly ridiculously successful. He's a household name musician.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Not a superstar household name, but you would know him if I told you his name and what he did. You would know. And he said, dude, I've never accomplished the level of success that I was groomed to accomplish from when I was a kid. And it's been eating at me my whole life. I've disappointed my parents. I've disappointed my expectations of everybody that's been watching me along the way. I've done, and he said, when I read your book, he goes, it's a manual for my life. I got to change the way I think. You mean I got to now worry about what I think about myself? I've never done that. And I'm
Right.
like, whoa, that's heavy because I mean, sometimes you can live your whole life thinking I'm supposed to be on this path because that's the path I was taught I'm supposed to be on. And all of a sudden you realize, dude, that's not the path you belong on.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes it is, and it's great when people are, in tune with what they've been groomed to do. But most times we're not. And honestly, it's not a, uh, middle finger to the world. I don't care what you think, but it is. I'm not going to place what I think your expectations of me are higher than what I think my expectations of me are. In other words, when I go to work and I want to impress my editor, I'm writing the best thing I can, not because I want my editor to say it's good. I write it because I want to know that I'm giving something good to my editor. When I get up and I get to work, I don't go to work saying I'm going to make the boss happy. I'm going to work saying I want to do the best I can on this project.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, secondary result, the boss will be happy, but I'm going there because I want to do the best I can do. It's
Right.
a, it's just a, it's just a little bit different mindset.
Yeah, it adds a little tweak to it because if you think the other way, where you're like, I gotta please my boss, or I gotta please the these people, that adds like you don't notice it at the time, but it adds such a heavy pressure onto literally everything you do. Because I was a people pleaser as well, and I like to. I think I still kind of am, but to a point where it's more balanced than before. Before it was like all my energy belongs to everyone else except for myself. And when you think like that and you approach life like that, there's this pressure on your shoulders that you don't recognize at first until you get out of that cycle, because you're trying so hard to, you know, please everybody. You can't please everybody. That is such an unrealistic expectation, because we all, like we just mentioned, have all these different thoughts and all these different opinions. How is it realistic to think you're going to please everyone?
It's impossible. And
No.
not only that, what happened with me, I've talked to countless people about the same concepts. What happened to most of them is at some point in your life, you wake up when you're like that, going, like, who am I? Like, I don't even know who I am, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because all I've been is so buried in trying to please other people or live up to the expectations that I think other people have for me, or to fulfill what I think this person wants of me. Yeah, you wake up and you go, well, what the hell? Like, what do I want to do? Who am I? Like people get lost. You have no identity. And and honestly, there's no place for contemplation when you're pleasing other people,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you're focused on yourself, you can contemplate the things that you do well and try to do them better. And you can contemplate the things, excuse me, that you don't do well, that you want to fix. I know right near the end of that failed marriage, my ex-wife was screaming at me, and I was just like, dude, I hate when you yell at me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, what? Why is that? Because your mother yelled at you? What am I, your mother? Did you marry your mother? And I went, oh my God. Yeah, I exactly married my mother. Thank you for asking me. Holy cow, it just hit me. You not
Right.
only do you sound like her and you act like her, you look like her, you move like. I'm like, whoa, I might be the stupidest guy I've ever met.
Mm.
I mean, I'm saying this to myself, but yeah, I realized I had never thought about it. Why? Because I never could please my mom. So every relationship I had with a woman was a wreck. And I just tried to please them so that I could solve whatever BS I had in me about thinking I had to do something for other people to make them think a certain way of me. And when I started realizing this, I went, oh my God, like I'm not doing what I need for me. I'm I'm just trying to fix something or trying to figure out something to make other people happy. Like where's the joy in that?
Mm.
Do you know? And I love. I'm married, very wonderful, wonderful woman. My kids are grown. I have great relationships. I love being a host. I love taking care of people. I'm very caring. I'd rather do something for somebody else than myself 98 out of 100 times. But it's coming from a different point. It's like I'm doing it for me, and they're the secondary benefit. You know?
Right. Yeah. Just like you said with your boss, where you're like, you're going to do this hard work for yourself, and then your boss is going to feel pretty good about it.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
if you go in there doing it for your boss, you might end up with, some regret. You might end up, holding a grudge because you didn't do it for you. Well, go do it for you. If you don't want to do something, if you don't want to do something, don't do it.
Mm.
And now, you can't always have to be able to choose everything that you do. But it was so funny. I was getting ready to do a race, right? And it was super hot and it was super long. And then I drove the course ahead of time and it was super hilly. And I said to the person in the car, I'm like, man, this is ridiculous. Like, why would they do a course like this? And she looked at me and she goes, dude, nobody's paying you to do this. Stop complaining, man. You paid for the right to do this course. Why are you complaining? If you don't want to do it, don't do it. Change your mindset. And I'm like, wow,
Right.
that's really smart.
Mm. You pay for the course, and you're like, fuck this. What the hell?
I know.
You
Like,
paid.
really, dude? Why are you complaining? Dude, you choose. Now, look, I don't want to sound like I'm being preachy, but honestly, we can choose to get a different job. We can choose to redo our resume. We can choose to follow a passion. We can choose to cut people out of our lives that are not additive to our. We can choose most of the things that we do. Sometimes we can't, right?
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes circumstances don't allow us to choose. But really, I mean, really, you live one life. It's nobody else's life. It's your life, and and when you can, even when you think you can't, you probably can, but when you can, take care of yourself first and do what you want. You should try doing it. It might not always work out, but I just think it's better than the other way around. And it took me a lot of years to figure that out.
Mm-hmm.
A
Yeah.
lot of years.
Yeah, I can imagine. Now, throughout all those years, like, you know, now that you're out of that sedentary cycle that you were in
Yeah.
that abusive relationship and everything, looking back now, is it ever weird for you to look back at how who you were before? Like, do you even recognize the person that you were before that?
No, I really don't. And it's a good question. I think about that oftentimes. Like, I have some friends in my life and some people that I admire that have kind of been on like one path, and the pathway kind of just expands and that's what their life becomes. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like with me, and I don't know if you feel this way or some of your audience feels this way, but for me, I feel like I went down a path and I wasn't really aware that I was choosing to go down it. And then I get certain way down it and I go, yeah, this is not where I belong. So I just jump over to another path and I go down that one. And I get to a point where I go, yeah, I'm not supposed to be here. And I jump off it. And sometimes it's bad circumstance, or sometimes it's bad decisions, on my part. But I look back and I go like, wow, dude, who was that? Right? Like,
Right.
like who was it? I guess we can all do that because as you grow and you mature and you gain some perspective on life, you kind of talk to your younger self and go like, what were you thinking? But I know for sure I've had 5 or 6 major jumps to different paths in my life that seem to be, for lack of a better word, based on better thinking and more enlightenment about what path I should be on.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know? And I do look back at that person. I would be like, make better decisions, like be aware of what you're doing a little bit more. So I really try to do that today, be more aware of who I am and what I want to do. Um and that definitely does provide some contrast and keeps me motivated to continue to try to stay conscious of my decisions and authentic and centered in what I'm doing, because I really want to do the things that I want to do. And when I can, right? We can't always spend every minute the way we want to. But
Right.
I didn't do that earlier in life for sure.
Yeah, right. I actually that's something that I just mentioned on Instagram to my platform is like, I do a lot of self-reflection, and every time I go back I think like who the fuck is that? Who even is that?
Yep.
Like I
Yep.
don't even know who that is. And before, when I would do that or I would reflect, like even when I was at my lowest points and I would lash out or do something embarrassing, I wouldn't acknowledge it or I wouldn't address it because it was less painful to just kind of put it to the side rather than address it. And
Hmm.
then, now that I do the self reflection, I still have those feelings of, oh, you should just ignore that. It's fine. It happened. Don't worry about it. But, there's a quote from my favorite movie of all time, The Lion King, where it's like, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. And
Yeah.
now that I've given myself the opportunity to just sit down and face these embarrassing things that I've done or these angry outbursts I've had or these thoughts that I've learned a lot more and it's way more beneficial for me.
Yeah, and that probably involves some amount of forgiveness, self-forgiveness. And because, I say it a lot and it sounds kind of stupid, but it really isn't when you think about it, that you just know what you know when you know it.
Hmm.
You don't know what you know until you know it, right? Like you know what you know. And you didn't know at that time that you were lashing out because of some other thing, and you didn't know that you weren't, taking the correct view of it or an honest, authentic view of it. You didn't know that, you didn't come home and kick the cat because somebody cut you off at work, right? Like you didn't like you know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
like until you know that you should be reflecting, until you know how to make better decisions, until you know how to better treat the people around you or treat yourself, you didn't know. And so you gotta have some amount of forgiveness for that. And Otherwise, you can't grow. You can't grow if you don't accept the fact that you're allowed to make mistakes and you're allowed to fail. And these things are learning experiences. And I have this analogy that I apply to my life that happened from a real life event where I was doing this super ridiculous. I had no freaking business doing this event. It was an 85-mile rollerblade race. Remember rollerblades? You know those rollerblade things?
Yeah, yeah.
And it wasn't on a track or something. It was on the gentle rolling hills of Georgia. So I went from a place called Athens, Georgia to Atlanta, Georgia, 85 miles up and down these mountains on rollerblades during a race, like a race on rollerblades. And it was stupid. I had no business being there. Okay. And when I say that, I mean, trust me, I had no business being there. And a couple hours into the race, I had reached my breaking point. I was done. My legs were toast. I was dehydrated. I was complete wreck. And I was at kind of like a little way up a hill, and I turned sideways to the hill, Harry, and I look back and I see the sag wagon that's back there picking up the stragglers that aren't going to make it to the finish. And I still have like 50 miles to go. And I go, I don't want to go to that sag wagon. And I lean over and I'm trying to catch my breath in this line of sweat because I'm sweating profusely. This line of sweat starts going down the hill. And I just remember saying to myself in my head, I go, okay, well, here's the deal, dude. If you turn around and hit that sag wagon, you would have found out everything about yourself, endurance wise, physically wise. Like, like that's it. You're done. You go home, you pack it up, go home, hang it up. Don't ever tell anybody that you did this. Don't ever do anything like this again, because that was your limit. And then I go, but if you could just go past that line, like make one step, then you're going to learn something new and you could forget about going home. And if you go another step and another step and another step, you're going to learn more and more and more. And every time you go past something that you know about yourself, and every time that you try harder, you push harder, you forgive yourself, you take a break so that you can go forward. Every time you hit a new point, you learn something new. And I'm just like, that was a big attraction for me. So yeah, I made it the 50 odd miles to the finish line. It was like another 6 hours of brutality, but it was self-inflicted, which is fine. But I keep doing these events and I keep trying to do things like this book I wrote, Cycle of Lives, about cancer, and the 5,000-mile bike ride, and all the stuff that I do is because I keep saying, like I got more ground ahead of me than I got behind me. And if I've already found out everything I need to know about myself, like you said earlier, about people that already know that, everything, and they want people to think the way that they think. Like, if I'm there, dude, I'm packing it up and I'm going home, and I'm closing the doors, right? Because if I already know everything, what good am I to myself or anybody else? So I want to keep finding out what's past that line. What's that next step I could take to learn something new about myself, or learn about what the world could offer me. And that's the analogy I kind of live my life by.
Yeah, no, I love that. Now, the book you just mentioned, what
Yeah.
what inspired you to write the second one?
So Cycle of Lives came out of, it's taken me a while to be able to talk about it in these terms, just because I reflected a lot on it.
Hmm.
But it came out of this concept that when I was at that low point in my life that we talked about, and I found out my sister had terminal cancer. Um, she had a husband, two young kids, great job, great life, whatever. And I wasn't super conscious at the time, but I know that this what was going on, was that I was at this point in my life where I was getting ready to head out on a journey to see what life was going to offer me, because I finally retooled my thinking when I was at that low point in my life. And at the same time, she is on a path to see how long she could last until life was going to be taken from her. So we were on these weird paths, right? Me finally starting to live, her realizing she's going to die. And we had a lot of talks, and talked about a lot of emotional things, talked about um, a lot of regrets she was going to have, some of the positives and negatives of what was going on. And just, we talked about a lot of stuff. We talked about our parents, our lives, and we didn't talk about everything, but we talked about a lot. And then I realized, Harry, that was the exception. That was not the rule. So what I came to find out, sorry for the long answer, but I think it's important to set the
No, of
stage.
course, yeah.
Yeah, people will identify with this, is that I found out that when it comes to trauma, specifically and especially with cancer, because cancer is like kind of out there and mystical, people don't really understand it, um, because it makes no sense, right? You got the 90-year-old woman that smokes cigars and drinks whiskey and doesn't have cancer, and you got the 27-year-old, professional runner who gets breast cancer and dies 3 months later, right?
Yeah.
It makes no sense. Um, so I found that people were really good about talking about the tasks around their cancer. How do I get myself to the doctor? How do I get my kids watched when I'm in the chemo chair? How do I eat healthier? How do I navigate the healthcare system? How do the tasks? But when it comes to the emotional side of it, people were not equipped to deal with the emotional side. And you talk about that with regards to like awareness and mental health and all of this stuff. But really, you think about it, like when somebody tells you something bad, like, oh man, dude, my coworker at work just got diagnosed with cancer. I don't know what the hell to say,
Right.
right? And it's because we don't talk about the emotional side of it. You're just like, oh, dude, I'm sorry. See ya. You don't go, oh my God, what's up with your friend? Like, is that somebody you really like? Or what? No, this is a guy I've been terribly mean to my whole time at work, and I just found out he's got cancer. I'm such an a-hole. I got to figure out a way to make it better, right? But we don't say that, right? We just go, oh, like, oh, I don't know what to do. And we don't talk about the emotional side of it. So I found that was very consistent with both caregivers and loved ones and survivors, people going through cancer, doctors, that they were able to deal with everything. But when it came to the emotional side of it, they really weren't. And that theme kept happening to every single person I talked to at some level. And what that created was the inability for people to connect with the people that are important to them at a meaningful, deep, authentic, true, heart-centered, lasting way. Because you block, you go, I'm not going here. I'm not going to close that gap between the emotional connection because I don't know how to deal with that. And there's a lot of reasons why, but that was the thing. And so I said, let me try to get a wide range of people who had a wide range of experience with cancer, survivor, loved one, patient, doctor, caregiver, whatever. Let me talk about the things you and I both know, which is the traumas in their lives, the bad decisions they made, the abuse they had, the abandonment, the suicide of a parent, the bad decisions they made in their life, the horrible things that have happened to them that I can identify with. And then I say, how did those things prepare them to be able to handle the emotional side of their trauma with cancer? Or did those things prevent them from handling the emotional side of trauma? And tell these stories in a really true, raw, inspiring, evocative way so that the reader could learn from that and go, oh, okay, I could take that to a situation. I could take that to a relationship. And I could call somebody I know who's going through something and maybe understand them just a little bit more, or understand what I should do to try to get to understand them a little bit more. So it's not a preachy book. It's not a prescriptive book. It's just these really true, authentic, inspiring stories that I think better equip the readers to help form deeper connections with the people in their lives that are going through or have gone through something as traumatic as cancer.
Right. Yeah.
Long answer. I'm sorry, but I wanted to frame it
No,
properly.
that was perfect. Yeah, no, you answered it right, nail on. Now, on the topic of the cause of the book and the inspiration and everything,
Yeah.
when you first heard that your sister had terminal brain cancer, like, were you personally emotionally prepped for something like that, or?
No, definitely not. I don't know how you do prepare for that or even try to wrap your brain around it. Um, and I think because we talked a lot, that I was prepared for her death as well as I could be, because it wasn't the elephant in the room that when nobody would talk about. We talked about it, and I remember some very poignant things that she said near the end of her life that'll never leave me about, you know, about her thoughts on her death. And so, it's not like she died in a car accident and you wonder, what the hell, man, I never got to say goodbye, or, oh, it's so tragic. It was like this. I mean, that's the one silver lining around a very dark cloud, is
Right.
oftentimes when people have a terminal disease, you can have the ability to work those things out. But certainly hearing it the first time, or accepting that that's the reality, it's just not good on any level for anybody, right? And I don't think anybody can be equipped to buy it. Well, one of the people in the book is a doctor, uh, an oncologist for 40 years. And we talked about her emotional journey of how desperate she is for people to take her advice, uh, as opposed to her younger self when she wasn't as desperate for people to take her advice. And what caused that desperation for people to take her advice is because she knew that if they did, they would potentially live potentially live a much better life, because advancements in cancer research, advancements in treatment and protocols, gave her the ability to care for people in a more meaningful, positive outcome way. And she now, 40 years later, had a wonderful life. And she's so grateful for all of her experiences in her life and stuff. And when she's talking to a young person, and they won't take her advice, they won't listen to her, she's desperate to say, but you can miss out on this, all this life and this whole deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
and and in fact, she's gotten to the point where if they don't listen to her, she won't care for them, because it's too hard for her, right? If they think they can cure their cancer by sleeping better, or by eating better, she goes, yeah, maybe that'll help, but there's drugs and there's treatments that work, whatever. And she told me something that was really brilliant. She said that the human brain is just not wired to contemplate its own death. Right? It just can't do it. It's just, we're not wired to be able to do that. And I thought to myself, that's what makes these conversations so hard. Or when you say, I've got terminal cancer, it's just like, I mean, what the hell? Like, how do you even try to
Yeah.
wrap your brain around that?
Right. Yeah. It's like as soon as you say it, it's like you visualize that death sentence.
But even what does that mean? I mean,
Yeah.
like how do you even know what death means? Like it's just a weird thing, and it's just like we're just used to living. We're not used to dying, and so it's a really hard thing. And look, uh, not all cancer is death. Not all trauma is going to lead to horrible situations, right? It's not about that. What like eventually we're all going to die of one thing or another, and it is usually pretty tragic. It's usually not like, very rarely do we go, oh wow, that person lived to be 120 and lived this perfect life, and oh, that's okay, it was time for them to go, right? That's the very rare thing. It's
Right.
usually always tragic, and we never want it to happen. So you just got to put that aside, right? How about why we're here and why we're living, that we form more meaningful connections with the people that matter to us? And how about even more meaningful connection with our true selves? And the only way I feel that we can do that is by navigating these emotions and connecting with people on a true, authentic way, and digging deeper to try to understand what they're going through or what they have gone through, and provide a safe space for them to be who they need to be, or to know that you're there, that you're with them, that you support them, that you love them, which is really, really hard to do.
Right.
It's hard to do, like who doesn't know. I'm sure you had this conversation, especially because you told me all you did is run around pleasing people, where somebody will go, yeah, Harry does all this really cool stuff, but geez, I don't know. I don't even know who he is. Like, we never had a really deep talk, right? but but you know what I'm saying? Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, I had that actually over the summer. A coworker, we were at a party at the end of the year and she was like, "You know, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself? I feel like I don't know anything about you." And I was like, "I've
Right.
we've been working alongside each other for like 4 months straight, like every single day." And she's like, "I don't know anything about you."
Yeah.
It was a weird
That's so
feeling. I was
funny.
like, I feel like yeah, it's strange.
Yeah. And so, especially when it comes to things that are uncomfortable, right? We don't want to invade people's space. We don't want to say the wrong thing. We don't want to like shine light on the fact that they're going through something really crappy and we're not, because gosh, I don't want to make them feel bad about it. I mean, there's a million reasons why we don't. I was on the bike ride. So I did this 5,000-mile ride to go meet with the people I'd been talking to for a couple of years that were the book participants that I, you know, uh, there were more than 15 made the book. And um, I'm on this bike ride because I wanted to be the thread that ties the stories together. So I
Mm,
wanted I wanted to write a little narrative about my bike ride and the people I met on the ride, and those were going to connect all these stories, right? And that's how we're all connected. It's just this whole play on words thing. And I'm on this bike ride, and I have a friend in New Mexico, and I'm about 10 days in, and he goes, dude, you want to come to have brunch with my family? They're really excited about what you're doing, and we just want to thank you. I go, yeah, for sure. So we go to the brunch, and ahead of time, he says, hey, dude, look, my dad went through cancer about 20 years ago. My sister went through cancer like 10 years ago. I'm sure they'll want to talk to you. So the dad pulls me aside and he goes, he's like this 80-year-old dude. He's like, man, I appreciate what you're doing, this bike ride and your book. And people have to talk about what's in their heads and what's in their heart about the cancer because it's so much more than just the cancer. I'm really happy that you're doing this. And I'm like, oh, that's cool, right? And then my buddy's sister, who's like 50 years old, she's a nurse. She had a bilateral mastectomy, stage 3 cancer, left nursing to become a patient advocate and a lobbyist for cancer patient rights. And she pulls me aside and she's like, dude, I mean, like cancer is not about the cancer, it's about the emotional things. And we never talk about that stuff. So I'm so glad that you're doing this. And I'm like, that's great. So I get to the end of the table, at the end of the meal, and I stand up at the table, Harry, and I'm like, look, man, not everybody is like you guys, right? They don't share their emotions and wear them on their sleeves and all this stuff. And all of a sudden I look at the dad and his daughter and my friend's sister, and they both are heads down, arms crossed, and I go, what? I go, you guys just told me like how great this is. You talk, right? You share your emotions about this stuff. And the dad goes, well, I'm old school Mexican. I didn't want to burden my family. And, I just go through what I go through. I'm the man. I don't want to. I go, but you just got done telling me how important it is. He goes, well, it's important. I just didn't do so much. And I look at the daughter and I go, dude, you just told me how important it is. You became a patient's rights advocate. Like you saw what your dad went through. And she goes, yeah, but I didn't know how to talk to him about the fact that he might lose a daughter, and I didn't want to remind him about his cancer. So I don't want to burden him with my problem. And I'm like, you're super close. They go, yeah, we just don't talk about that. And I'm like, oh my God. Like, how
mm,
do you not? Right. And it's just it's so I can so identify with that. They love each other, they're close, they even have some of the same experiences, but the heavier emotional stuff that they went through, they wanted to isolate. They wanted to keep it inside because they didn't want to burden the other. They didn't want to shame themselves. They didn't want to guilt the other. They didn't want to make themselves vulnerable. They didn't want to, whatever. And it's just a bridge they didn't cross so that they could join. And it
mm,
was very indicative of every person I spoke to at certain levels. And so it was really sweet when I was in Florida, Harry, like 3 weeks later, I'm biking down this road in Florida, and my buddy calls me up and he's like, dude, I just got back from dinner with my dad and my sister. You inspired them to make an appointment to have dinner to talk. And he goes, dude, I just sat there and they laughed and they cried and they just talked about all that emotional crap that they had gone through and regretted not sharing with the other. And it was really beautiful. And you helped inspire them to connect on an emotional level. And I went, man, that is the greatest thing ever.
Mm, mm. Man, yeah. How do people even start that conversation? Like people who don't want to burden other people with this situation they're in now, or people who just really feel uncomfortable talking about it. How do we get them to start talking?
It's a good question. I mean, really, in my opinion, it's just prov- like providing a really authentic, safe space. Okay. Like if you're going through something right now that's super, super difficult, I guarantee you there's certain people that are very close in your life that have no idea.
Right.
They have no idea. Okay. And vice versa. If you know of somebody that's going through something really, really difficult, I'm sure that you haven't approached them with it or you haven't talked to them in a while because you don't know what to say. And if there's anybody listening that doesn't agree with both those things, I think you're lying. You're going, you know, if you're going through something difficult, there's people that love you that you haven't been honest with about what you're going through because maybe you don't want to guilt them. Maybe you don't want them to abandon you if you rely on them. I give you a million reasons why you haven't reached out, and vice versa. If you know somebody's going through something and that's been 5 weeks since you called them, and you're like, shoot, man, I was supposed to call them a week later, and it's been 5 weeks. Now, what the hell am I going to say? I'm such a bad friend. Shoot, I'm not going to call them because I'm just gonna. Oh, I'm gonna hope to leave a message when I know they're not there or whatever. And we're not doing what we can do. And I just say you got to be okay with the fact that you're going to say the wrong thing, that you're going to be an asshole, you're going to put them in a bad position, you're going to make it uncomfortable because to talk about these things is difficult, to be vulnerable, to ask somebody else to be vulnerable, to invade their private space, to allow them to invade your private emotions is hard. But the people that care about you won't abandon you, and the people that care about you will want you to feel better or want to know that you could share your emotions with them or you share your feelings with them. And so I think it is just this like way that you got to just be okay reaching out and talking to people, and taking a chance that it's okay if you invade their space or say the wrong thing or whatever, right? Because I just think people want that. It's just we don't know how to do it. So just you got to take the first step. Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've done that where a friend's going through something tough and you're like, I don't even know what to say. Like, I feel like if I contribute anything, it's going to make it worse. But
Yeah,
I mean, from experience of going through a mentally challenging experience, I'll tell you right now, I would rather you come out and say the wrong thing and acknowledge the fact that you're aware than just ignore it and pretend it's not happening. Because when the people around you ignore it and pretend it's not happening, you really well, this is for me anyway. I can't speak on other people, but I used to really question what was going up in my head even more than I was already doing because people were not addressing it. People were ignoring it. And I was like, am I crazy? Like, why no one's addressing the fact that I look ill?
right.
That like I have this aura around me that I hate myself. No one notices. So I would rather in my personal opinion, I would have rather people just say the wrong thing. Like, hey man, you look like shit today. I would have rather that. I would have been, thanks, man. Like,
Absolutely, absolutely. I just had because you just told me something that just reminded me. I just had a an event, and one of the guys in the room had gone through cancer, older guy, and and he had said a few weeks ago in a conversation with me, he goes, I was coming in the office a little bit less because I was going through chemo. He goes, 40 pounds. I lost 40 pounds.
mm,
He goes, and nobody knew I was going through cancer. He goes, but I was kind of shocked that nobody even asked me if I had gone on a diet. He goes,
right,
everybody knows. How could you not know, dude? I lost 40 pounds. I didn't look sick, but I looked thinner. Like nobody wanted to say, like, dude, you look like you're losing weight. maybe I would have said something, maybe I wouldn't have, but nobody even said anything
Mm.
because he's like this older guy and you don't want to get into space. Maybe you don't want to say that, hey, dude, are you losing weight? Because if he isn't, then you're saying he's fat, right? Right? Like,
Right. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? Like, you could always say the wrong thing, but how about just like, dude, you're losing weight. What's going on?
Right.
Yeah, I didn't tell you I got cancer and I'm going through chemo and radiation right now and I can't keep any food down. It kind of sucks. Well, maybe that was the right thing to do because he thinks nobody cares, right? Nobody cares to ask him what the hell is going on. Like you're like, you know, you look like crap, and nobody's telling you look like crap. You're like, does nobody care about me? Meanwhile, they really care. They're like, oh, I don't want to say anything because Harry looks like crap, but I don't want to point that out to him.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. No. It's funny because when you're the person who doesn't want to say anything, you feel like compliments, just drowning them in compliments, are the solution. No, most of the time it's not. I would rather you be honest and like make my feelings hurt a little bit, where I go, finally, people know.
Yeah, and I'll give you an example of what you could do. And I've only learned this. I'm not telling you because I'm trying to preach, right? I've
Right.
learned this
Yeah.
from the stories that I've encountered and the people that I've met during this journey. It's a 6 or 8 year process that I've been going through. I'm writing the book, doing the bike ride. I mean, I've had thousands and thousands and thousands of conversations about this stuff. So I hope you and your listeners don't think I'm being preachy. I'm just relaying the experience from these stories. But
Hmm.
you know, this it, I had a friend who was going through something, and I said, "Dude, are you okay?" And he's like, "No, man, I'm fine." Right? And I said, "Okay, okay." Like I backed away. Right? But there was one of the stories. I won't go too heavy into it in the book, but it's one of these stories where it's basically a young guy going through the most horrific set of circumstances with his cancer, like unbelievable. Like had no chance to live, but ended up living. And he was this super macho dude because he's young, Latino. You know, he's been abandoned his whole life by different people, in the worst ways. And um, you know, he just was in self protection mode. So he didn't let anybody take care of him or anybody care for him. And he didn't show weakness. He didn't allow anybody in. It was his bubble of protectionism that he had to do because anybody that came into his life killed themselves or left or abandoned him or whatever, right? It's just that was his protection. And when we were talking, I kind of asked him one day, I said, so when people said, "Are you okay?" And you said, "Yeah, I'm fine," and it made them go away, what would you have wanted to happen? And he said, well, maybe if one person would have said, "Are you saying you're okay because you're okay? Or are you saying you're okay because you think if you tell me something's wrong, I'm gonna get, I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna look at you funny
Mm.
because I'm asking you because I really care. I'm asking you if you're okay, not as a trite little, oh, I hope he says yes so we don't have to talk. I'm asking you if you're okay because, dude, I think you're not. And I'm caring about you. So which is it? Are you okay? Or are you afraid to tell me you're not okay? And I went, wow, dude, who's got the balls to say that to you? And he's like, yeah, I know. So it's really easy to not go deep with people because we're really good about shutting it off. Like, dude, I'm fine. Go about your business or make it, you know, you're too uncomfortable to talk to people. All that's good. We can all like not deal with the heavy stuff. And I'm like, wow, that's some heavy stuff. So what I do is I try to go a step further. I try to ask an open-ended question. Not are you okay? It's like, hmm, you seem kind of heavy today. Is that mine? Am I misinterpreting that?
Mm.
Or is what or do you seem heavy today? You know, and it's like, yeah, I'm a little heavy. Well, okay, you want to talk about it? No, I don't want to talk about it. Well, okay, but do you want to talk about it because it's not the right time? Or do you want to not talk about it because you think I'm not gonna like I'm gonna judge you or whatever? Right? No, it's just I don't really want to talk about. Oh, okay, here's what's going on, right? And then right? If you just go a little step further, it's really hard to do.
Right.
It's really hard to do because, like you said, you don't want to say the wrong thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have to have the uncomfortable discussions, but there's a reason they're uncomfortable. It's because we don't want to talk about it.
Yeah, and really, honestly, Harry, is anything that you've done in your life that's meaningful, was it ever easy?
No, never.
Never. And it's not supposed to be, right? I remind myself. The other day I was reminded of that when I said something was hard, and somebody goes, "Oh, did they tell you at birth it was going to be easy?" And I'm like, "All right, take it easy, right? Yeah, I know it's supposed to be hard. I got you, but yeah, I mean, anything meaningful anybody's ever done in their life, it's not easy.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's kind of supposed to be hard.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, it's just like the show, right? Like the show that I have, it's so much work. And like sometimes you go, oh my God, this is tough. But would I rather it just be easy all the time and just not feel any reward for getting to meet people and sharing stories? No, absolutely not. I would rather work my ass off and just look at the end result and go, yeah, I did that.
Yeah, it's meaningful, it's important, it's what you want to do, and whether it touches, 1,000 people or one person, it doesn't matter, man. You're doing it for you, and you
Yep.
feel good about it,
Exactly,
right?
man.
And that, and honestly, if you can embrace the pain and embrace the difficulty, and just go, that's part of it, right? It's supposed to be hard, like it's supposed to be, okay, all right, I can handle that. If it's supposed to be hard, okay, I'm not going to complain that it's hard. I'm just going to get to it.
Right. Yeah. Exactly, man. Where can my listeners find your book and find more about you and your platforms and everything?
Well, thanks, Harry. So all the proceeds from the book, that any dollar that comes to me through traditional publishing sales, or through private sales or whatever, 100% of what comes to me goes to be split amongst the charities that were chosen by the book participants. So there's some really good cancer centers, hospitals, that type of thing, that the people in the book felt very strong about. So I feel like the book, first and foremost, is there to try to help educate people, and not, again, it's not preachy educate. It's inspire, educate, like gain insight into people's lives and the difficulties that they've gone through, so that we can be better equipped to form these connections. So I feel like the book really does that. That's the number one goal. The number two goal is to raise a little bit of money, right? So anywhere books are sold, Amazon, Barnes and Noble, any local bookstore, um, they should have it. If they can't, they order it. The audio book is out. Any tablet or any e-reader you have, that version is out. So you can get that by going wherever books are sold, wherever you buy your books, you'll find Cycle of Lives. Also, my website, which is cycleoflives.org, that'll talk about all the things I'm doing and the talks that I do, and the book, and a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, if it interests you, get it. It's not about cancer. It's about being inspired by the difficulties that people go through, and the challenges that they overcome most of the time. But what we can learn from them that we can apply to our own lives. So it's really inspirational and really moving stories. And each one is self-contained. So even though it's a heavy book with like 16 stories and 400 odd pages or whatever, each story is self-contained. So you can read it, put it away for a month, come back and pick it up. You don't need to remember where you left off, because each story is its own story. So it's pretty cool in that way too.
Right. Awesome, man. I'll put those links down below. David, thank you so much for coming on, man. This has been a pleasure.
Yeah, you're welcome. I feel like we could talk all day, Harry. Thank you.
I know. Next episode, it'll be 24 hours.
Nice. The Harry and David show.
That's right. And to
All
all
right,
my
man.
listeners, I will see you guys next time.